Hello, hopefully in this video I'm going to show you how to use Amazon's AWS SNS SMS to send text messages. So Amazon have Amazon Web Services, which is separate to, say, Amazon, where you buy stuff online and possibly sell stuff online. They have web services where you can host websites, host databases, run virtual machines, lots and lots of stuff. So they have a thing called Amazon SNS, which is Simple Notification Service, which application developers could use to pop up, I think, notifications on Android or iPhones. But also, as part of that, it can also do text messages at a much lower rate than if you're out of bundle or out of free text messages, or if you obviously need to programmatically send text messages, then you can't use a mobile phone very easily anyway. So, for example, here, going to a big UK mobile provider, that's 1.6 pence roughly, or depending on, I don't know how they calculate these or how you tell which of the T-Mobiles or EE plans people are on, but this one is basically 0.4 of a pence, or of a dollar, which is not even that, 0.4 of a cent, which is very, very good pricing. So depending on the type of text message you send, if you send promotional ones where they send it lower priority over lower cost carriers, then you get the lower pricing. If you go for transactional, then you get quicker delivery and slightly higher pricing. But the problem I found was the lack of documentation on this, especially for a lamer like me, where I use Visual Basic.net instead of C#.net. It took me a while to work out how to do it, so I thought I'd make a video and show people how you do it. I'm going to go probably quite quickly through this, so you might want to utilize the pause button and skip backwards and forwards through the video, but hopefully this will get you sorted and sending text messages through Amazon SNS SMS. And first thing, sign into Amazon's AWS. Sign into the console. Then on the first page, I've visited it recently, it's called IAM, but in the search box at the top, if you just type in IAM, manage user access and encryption keys. On the left hand side, you want to click on users. Then add user, the blue button, and type a username. For this case I'm going to call it my SNS SMS test application. And it's not going to be a user for somebody to log in to use the Amazon AWS Management Console. It's going to be programmatic, and for our application we need an access key and a secret. So tick the programmatic access option and go next. This gets very complicated to do with permissions. If you are going to use this in a big production, or if you've got more than this SMS application on your AWS account, I strongly recommend reading through all their documentation about access permissions, because you don't want to accidentally kind of cross-pollute or give too much access. Yes, so for this user I'm going to go attach existing policies directly. I'm then going to search for SNS, because it's Amazon SNS we want access to. Read-only is going to be pretty useless because we won't be able to send text messages. I'm not entirely sure what the difference between Amazon's SNS role and Amazon SNS full access. As I say, if you're going to use this in production, I'd strongly recommend reading through the policies that each of these provide. But to get up and running for the Visual Studio code that I'm going to show you, I'm just going to give it full access. So do the tick, or for my use, tick next to Amazon SNS full access, scroll down, click on next. Scroll down, click on create user, and there is the access key and the secret. So we need to make a note of these. Because we're going to need those in our Visual Studio program later. So at this point we can leave that web page open if we wanted, or yeah, I'll leave that web page open. So now it's time to load up Visual Studio and create a new project. For ease of setting this up, I'm just going to do a basic Windows Forms application. I could do a console one, but that generally for some reason takes me longer than just a form on a screen. There's a basic form. Let's make it smaller. Going to dump one single button on it for the moment. Going to call that one send example message. And save the project. So now we've saved the project, I now need to add, in here we've just got the standard .NET references. We do need the AWS reference for simple notification service. So under project, manage NuGet packages. And this keeps getting me every time. It starts in the installed tab, so you then search for something and then nothing comes up, and it takes me a while to notice that I've not selected the browse tab. So in browse, I just want to do simple notification service. You need to do the whole string there. You need to do the full simple notification service. So the result you want is the one with the, at the very top, at least on my screen, with the orange box as the symbol, not the ones below it with the blue icon. If you just do a search for simple notification, you just get the blue icons. Those aren't the correct ones. So Amazon, so simple notification service, click on the install button on that, and it wants to install some dependencies, which is fine, which is the Amazon SDK core. That's absolutely fine. And there we go, right hand side, under references we now have the AWS SDK core and simple notification service. So I can now close this NuGet thing because I don't need it anymore. And let's go into the code of this solution. Before we do that, we need to import some things. So first off, imports, then the two things that we've just added, so Amazon.simple notification service and imports Amazon.simple notification service.model. And we'll see how we go with that. So I want in my form, or at least my code, a variable for the simple notification service client. So dim my SNS client as new Amazon simple notification service client. Then when we click the button, there's several things that we need to deal with transacting with Amazon. There is a publish request, a publish response, and then some settings. So the first thing is dim or define SNS request. That could be any name, so you could call that my SNS request or SNS1 request if you're going to have multiple SNS connections, or whatever. As new publish request, and similarly dim SNS response as new publish response. Then for the attributes or the settings, dim SNS message, let's call it settings, as new dictionary of. So this is the bit where there was lots of documentation for C# and trying to convert the dictionary part to VB.net, which I'd never done. Took me a while to work out, this is definitely a bit where I'll want, or why I'm making this video, because it makes it much easier if you've got a working example when I couldn't find one. So, as new dictionary of string, comma, message attribute value, and then close bracket, and then at the end of that, open bracket, close bracket, new line. Now we can actually start to build our request to send to Amazon. So, first off, I'm going to set some settings for the message. These are definitely all documented. Let's Google for it. So, sender ID SNS, SMS type. Hopefully, no. Ah, yes, here we go. So sender ID, maximum price, SMS type. This stuff is documented somewhere, so as long as you know how to put the code into Visual Studio, you can set some other settings as you need. So we want SNS message settings dot add, because we want to add a setting. Open bracket, speech marks, AWS dot, and then I could just copy this, and I probably will copy it. Yes, I will do. From there, sender ID. So after the speech marks and before the close bracket, we want a comma, new space message attribute value, open bracket, close bracket, space with space, then we want curly bracket, which is on the British or possibly US keyboards to the right of P. Hold down Shift and do that one. Dot string value equals. So this is the sender ID, the what I want the message or the text message to come from. In the UK, and I'm not sure about other countries, you can't set that to a mobile number. So you can't say I want it to be 0789544 blah 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 blah. If you send a message with what looks like a standard mobile number or a standard landline number, the message will send and it will arrive at the recipient, but the sender ID would not be what you expect. It will say notice, or it possibly be just a random number that Amazon have assigned. So this has to be some words. The downside is customers can't reply, but that's not something in the UK that Amazon offer yet. If you're in the US, you can pay for a short code for your customers to respond to. So I'm going to call this Candy Cards. I don't think you can have a space in it. In fact, I'm certain you can't have a space in the name. So Candy Cards will be my company name that I want the notice to come from. And then comma dot data type equals string. Then curly bracket, normal bracket, and that's the entire string to add a setting. And as I say, there's all these other settings as well. And I'm also, to save on costs, I'm going to set it to be a promotional message as well. So SNS message settings, add aws.sns.sms type, new message attribute value with dot string value equals promotional dot data type equals string, and new line. Now we need to, that SNS message settings we now need to attach to our SNS request, which we're now going to build. So SNS request dot message attributes or attributes equals SNS message settings. So that we've set up there and given it some settings, we're now using here to attach to our SNS request. Pardon me, our SNS request. So the telephone number I want to send to, we do SNS request dot phone number. Then this needs to be in the international format but without the plus. So if you're used to international numbers, you'd normally see +44 1293 something or other, or if it's a US number, +1 650 488 9428 or whatever. Amazon don't want the plus, but they do want the international bit. So if you're sending to a US number, you do 1 650 blah 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 blah. If you're sending to the UK, you will do 44, and then if it's a normal mobile number, so UK mobiles are normally 0789 blah 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 with a 0 at the beginning or an O at the beginning, you'd need to remove that O. So I need to do +44, I need to do 44789 blah blah blah. So here's the test number that I'm going to be using, but because it's international format and the UK is weird, it's 44, get rid of the 0 at the beginning, 740, etc. Now we move on to what we want the message to say. SNS request dot message. Whoops, why can I not do message? There we go, message. I'm testing my SNS application. Is it working? If you do a message that's longer than 160, I think it's 160 characters, Amazon just sends multiple messages. I don't believe they do the funky kind of concatenation of messages. So the recipient won't get one long message. They will probably receive 2 or 3 or 4 messages as separate messages appearing in their iMessage or on their Android phone. So we've basically built the request there, and we are ready to submit it to Amazon. So we need to go SNS response to get the result of what we submit. So SNS response equals SNS client, and that SNS client is what we've set up here as a global variable. I could have done it within this button click and then it would destroy it each time, but for some reason in this example I've done it as a global variable. So my SNS client dot publish, and then SNS request, which is what we filled in up here, and I'm then going to do a message box of SNS response dot message ID, which should give me the transaction ID of the text message that was just sent. So this will fail because there's one more step we need to do. I'm going to start it and you'll see, because this again is another error message that you should probably be aware of. So this will probably try and load the form and fail at the form loading stage, as far as I remember. Or it does absolutely nothing, which is interesting. Yes, I think it's got stuck at this making the SNS client. Yeah, okay, that's a weird thing where you have to stop it or pause it and start it, and then it tells you that it can't find credentials. So Amazon service exception, unhandled, error, unable to find credentials, and indeed it's because we've not given it credentials. This is I'm sure there's got to be a way to do it in code here, but the simplest way that I found and the examples I found, you edit your app.config. So oops, double click on that to edit it, and underneath startup you want to add another section called app settings and then in here you can add settings. So I do quite often use this section for applications that might be running across different sites or might have different users using them, and then the app settings you can put in usernames and passwords for web services, and instead of having to recompile the program each time, you just edit in Notepad the app.config, or if you deploy it as an executable, it would be SMS AWS example.exe.config. You just edit that, and you don't have to recompile the program each time. So in some ways it does have its advantages. So I need to add some settings. Add key, which is basically the name, AWS access key. Whoops, that's the American keyboard messing me up there. Right, let's go back to how it was. AWS access key space value, and so this is the username or the key that we were given. Another one, add key equals, confusingly, key here is just basically name. That really should just say name instead of key, but because they have to be unique names, I guess they've gone and then called it key. But we then need the secret, so AWS secret key of a value equals, and then again back to the details we were given earlier. And then the region. I'm sure there's an easier way to find this out, but the way I found it out is I logged in and then I looked at the address bar and EU-West-1. So if you're in the US or I guess Australia, you'll probably get a different region, but EU West 1. So if I copy that, add key equals AWS Region value equals, we should be good to go now. So when I start this, instead of just stalling and doing nothing, it should give me the form. Yes, excellent. So go back to my form code just so you can see, and hopefully if I've done this correctly, we should get a message appearing on a test phone that I have in front of me. If I can get my video recording set up properly for this phone. So, send example message. And there's the message ID coming back from Amazon, so it's accepted the message and I've got a transaction ID basically. And either this telephone's, oh there we go, just as I go to press it because I think it's just not doing anything, it receives that message. And there we go. That is a hopefully fairly easy and quick example of how to send a text message using Amazon's SNS service, and that fairly simple really. It's a shame there isn't so much documentation on it, and I hope this has helped you. If it has, I'd love to know. Do leave a message in the comments, and good luck. Enjoy.